The story belongs to a young man named Anirban. He worked in an old, dusty library in a quiet suburban town. The heavy wooden shelves around him sagged under the weight of ancient books. A damp smell of aging paper always hung in the air. Anirban spent his days organizing shelves and helping readers find what they needed. But deep inside, he nurtured a massive dream. He wanted to be a successful author. He kept a thick notebook hidden in his desk drawer. Whenever he found a spare moment between his duties, he would open it and pour his imagination onto the pages. He had a brilliant mind for storytelling. Yet, the moment he closed the notebook and looked around the quiet library, a harsh voice in his head would mock him. The inner wall. That inner voice constantly told him he was incapable of achieving his dreams. It whispered that he was just an ordinary librarian. It told him he was born among these dusty books and would fade away right here. Who would ever read his stories? The voice convinced him he would just get lost in the crowd of famous writers in the big cities. These thoughts chipped away at his confidence day after day. He never gathered the courage to send his stories to a publisher. He believed his life needed to magically change first before he could start seeing himself as a real writer. His mind was trapped in a loop of fear and the sense of lack. He had slowly accepted defeat before even trying. The turning point. One afternoon, while clearing out a neglected corner of the library, an old book caught his eye. The cover was torn, but the pages inside held incredible value. It was a book about the power of the human mind and the subconscious. As Anirban read the chapters, he felt like a thick curtain was being lifted from his eyes. He finally understood that his current life was just a mirror reflecting his own limiting thoughts. He had been belittling himself for years, and as a result, his life remained small and restricted. He decided right then to change how he thought. He would no longer wait for the outside world to hand him a lucky break. The change had to start from within. The very next morning marked the beginning of a new chapter for Anirban. He woke up and stood straight in front of his mirror. Looking right into his own eyes, he spoke clearly. He said he was a successful author, and his stories touched people's hearts. For the first few days, saying these words felt strange and silly. His inner critic was still laughing in the background, but Anirban did not stop. Bringing imagination to life. Anirban did not just repeat hollow words, he started to truly feel them. Every night before falling asleep, he closed his eyes and built a clear scene in his mind. He pictured a beautiful, well-lit bookstore hosting the launch of his very first novel. He imagined the crisp smell of the newly printed pages. He visualized readers standing in line with warm smiles, waiting for him to sign their copies. He made this mental image so vivid and real that his brain began to accept it as the truth. This mental shift quickly bled into his daily life. He no longer walked into the library with slumped shoulders. His posture grew confident. He spoke with the calm assurance of someone who had already made it. When he wrote in his notebook, he felt the presence of thousands of readers waiting eagerly for his next word. He also learned the practice of daily gratitude. Every morning, he thanked the universe for his writing talent and for his upcoming success. He completely stopped entertaining thoughts of failure. The ultimate test. With his newfound belief, Anirban compiled his best stories into a polished manuscript. He took a deep breath and mailed it to several major publishing houses in the city. Then the waiting began. A few weeks later, the first response arrived. It was a short, polite letter stating his work did not fit their current publishing list. Anirban felt a brief sting of disappointment, but he quickly composed himself. Then came the second letter, followed by a third. One by one, 10 different publishers sent him rejection letters. During this tough period, his old inner critic woke up again. The voice sneered and told him he had warned him from the start. It told him he was wasting his time and should go back to his quiet, hidden life. But Anirban refused to surrender. He knew this was just a test of his new mindset. He did not stop his nightly visualizations. He carefully placed the rejection letters in his drawer and told himself that every single rejection was simply pushing him closer to a yes. He held on to the firm belief that his book would be published. With double the energy, he started writing a brand new story. He kept his mind perfectly still and focused. A new dawn. 6 months passed. One quiet afternoon, an older gentleman walked into the library. He was looking for a highly specific historical detail that was incredibly hard to track down. Relying on his years of reading and organizing, Anirban quickly located the exact reference book the man needed. They ended up having a long, fascinating conversation about history and literature. The older gentleman was deeply impressed by Anirban's knowledge and his articulate way of speaking. He introduced himself. He was a retired senior editor from one of the country's most respected publishing houses, and he still scouted for fresh literary talent. He looked at Anirban and noted that he had a wonderful way of weaving a narrative. He asked Anirban if he wrote anything himself. Anirban felt a sudden flutter in his chest. He calmly replied that he did write. The older gentleman asked to read his work. Anirban handed over his newly completed manuscript. He tucked it under his arm and left. 2 weeks later, Anirban's phone rang. It was the publishing house. They were captivated by the emotion, depth, and pacing of his stories. They wanted to publish his book. Touching the Sky. Fast forward 1 year, a large auditorium in the city was packed with an excited crowd. Anirban sat at a beautifully lit table on the center stage. In his hands rested his very own published novel. The fresh scent of the printed pages drifted up to him, matching exactly what he had imagined night after night in his small room. A long line of enthusiastic readers waited for his autograph. As he signed his name on the title page for the first time, tears welled up in his eyes. He realized then that his biggest battle was never with the publishing industry or the outside world. The real battle was entirely in his mind. The day he conquered his own fear and self-doubt was the day he won the war. Anirban now knows for a fact that when a person truly believes in a vision and works tirelessly towards it every single day, the physical world eventually bends to make it happen.